LinkedIn, we are going to fire up your Monday.
With Steve Spiro, the Master Connector.
I am Steve Spiro, the Master Connector.
Over the next hour of this Master Connection series, we will take a deep dive into the different ways to connect and network effectively.
See us and hear us right now. So LinkedIn, we are on here. We're getting ready.
Hear from experts along with Steve Spiro, who went from being shy and introverted to the Master Connector.
All right, LinkedIn, you know what it is. Like, share, shout out your city, your state, where you're viewing from. We love your questions. We love your comments. This show gets a lot more interesting with your involvement. We're so thankful for your involvement. We appreciate you being here, and we're going to talk about the X Factor today. Do you have it? I'm going to give you a little bit of the piece of the answer right away. You do, and we're going to be the light here and lead by example and show you that you can do things that will make you very, very special and make you stand out. But without further ado, I'm going to introduce our host, our Master Connector, Mr. Steve Spiro. Again, hit those thumbs up button, clappy buttons, support buttons. If you're watching this on the replay, hashtag replay. We love seeing your comments. Love you being a part of the show. You are why we do this. So I'm going to introduce our Master Connector himself, Mr. Steve Spiro, coming to you. Steve Spiro is a martial arts black belt and a master networker. He has moved from being a shy, introverted kid to the Master Connector he is today. Steve Spiro began his business career starting his first company. It was an advertising company in NYC. He had an incredibly fulfilling career in advertising and marketing, but eventually pivoted to the technology industry. Today, he's a certified customer communication consultant with Quadient, where he consults and mentors companies to help them find more effective ways to connect with their customers. Steve Spiro believes in the power of mentorship, growing oneself through self-development, and continuing to create meaningful connections through building a large network. Welcome to the stage, the Master Connector himself, Steve Spiro.
Thank you, sir. And I appreciate that. The Mr. Wizard of Oz behind the curtain. Appreciate everything you do, sir. So, hey, hey, folks, it's Steve Spiro, the Master Connector. Cameron and I really appreciate you tuning in. We're here now every Monday at 1 p.m. Eastern. We come at you with engaging content on how you too can be a Master Connector. During this Master Connection series, each week our goal is to gather subject matter experts to impart their wisdom on us. Hey, welcome to the show. I'm very blessed, though, to have my co-host Cameron Toth here. Cameron is the host and founder of Biz Dev Live. Cameron founded Toth Event Staffing in 2011. Toth Event Staffing is a hospitality company providing staff to caterers, cafeterias, and catering departments in Westchester, New York, and New York City. BizDev Live was founded in 2020, starting back in mid-September now, starting up back in mid-September, it'll be starting. BizDev Live takes Cameron's entrepreneurship experience and combines it with his passion for helping young people and business-minded professionals. Cameron Toth's mission in life is increasing access to education and opportunity for all people. So please bring to the stage my man and co-host, my good friend and the Wizard of Oz behind the stage, Mr. Cameron Toth.
Thank you, Steve. Appreciate you. We got some folks checking in. Mackenzie's in the comments there. I got LinkedIn. I'm not sure if that's one of our folks here, but we'll get the StreamYard.com/Facebook so you can show up with face and name on the stream here. So glad to be here. We're going to jump into our guests. I'm going to start with in alphabetical order. We're going to go first name order. Jason Grant here. Mr. Jason Grant. Modern business designer Jason M. Grant is creating the future functional businesses that minimize technology fatigue and wasted bandwidth while maximizing efficiency, delivering a potent blend of operational fluency, cloud continuity, remote departments and decision intelligence's company. The automated method allows entrepreneurs and founders to own their businesses, not just operate them. Jason's social channel, The Perfect Business, shares deep and disruptive insights on the relationship between business and technology. Welcome the disruptor himself, Mr. Jason Grant. I pulled you off mute. You're good to go.
Oh, that's fine. That's fine. What do you want to know? Where do we want to start? So
I was just going to say hello, and then I'm going to move on here and keep us going here. So we're going to go over to Judy. Thank you, Jason. All right, here we go. Judy in the house. Judy Hoberman is president of Judy Hoberman and Associates, a company focused on empowering professional women. She is an award-winning international speaker, best-selling author, trainer, and leading authority on women in leadership. With over 3 decades in business, she combines wisdom and humor with her behavior-shaping insights, impacting audiences of thousands, as well as small groups and individuals through her one-to-one executive coaching and mentoring. And she is often described as transformational. Men and women lead, sell, manage, and recruit differently, and Judy is the master at improving performance and company culture, empowering both genders to better support each other's successes in more productive ways. Judy also works with companies supporting their diversity and women's initiatives in the areas of leadership, recruiting, training, coaching, mentoring, and retention. She was a TEDx speaker talking about prejudging people. She is the author of 4 books, including Selling in a Skirt and Walking on the Glass Floor. She offers a training program that concentrates on women in leadership and the men who champion them, with emphasis on redefining culture. Judy's mission: to help one woman a day by following an important philosophy. Women want to be treated equally, not identically. Welcome to the stage, the wonderful, the amazing Judy Hoberman.
Thank you so much. Excited to be here.
Thank you very much. All right, we're going to jump into Miss Mackenzie Bowley. Hitting my buttons here. Here we go. Here we go. Going over to Mackenzie. Mackenzie Bowley. Mackenzie Bowley leads the digital presence department at Scaled Consulting, where she positions CEOs as the experts, and they are on LinkedIn and other social channels to drive inbound leads for their businesses. She also works with sales executives and teams to run value-added outbound campaigns. Mackenzie has directly generated more than $10 million in revenue in the past 4 years, and many millions more for our clients. She earned a BS in mathematics and natural sciences from the University of Denver. Please welcome to the stage the amazing Mackenzie Bowley.
Thank you so much. Very excited to be here today.
All right. So that's it. That's our guest. Steve, I want you to get started off. So we have this first question that's thrown out here. We know why people showed up, right? We're here to learn about the X Factor. Are you it? Are you special? We got so many people checking in. Alan Greenswell checking in from Ardsley, New York. Heather from South Carolina. Thanks for being here. Susan Castelli. I know she's coming to us from Ontario, Canada. Teresa, where are you checking in from? I forget where you're from. Teresa, love to hear from you. Love to see you. Thank you for being here.
Canada too.
Say again?
I think she's Canada as well.
Is she Canada? All right. Yeah, very good. So we got all our folks checking in here. We got our first question, which is, in your opinion, what is the X factor that makes you or someone successful? Stephen, get us started off, and then I have all my guests, Jason, Judy, Mackenzie. Let me know if you want to jump in on the back here. We got Liza Wiesner checking in, and Liza Wiesner checking in. Nate Cameron and Steve X Factor. So glad. I think she's checking in from Texas, if I'm not mistaken, Liza. So talk to us, Steve. What, in your opinion, what is the X factor that makes you or someone successful? And then we'll go round robin here.
Well, I think everyone, I think it's a great question, right? And I think everyone, like you alluded to, Cameron, everyone has it inside of them, I believe. But it's finding that X factor, and what is that X factor that makes you special, that makes you stand out, that people are drawn to you, right? You know, obviously we're blessed to have several people on our show today that have been on a TEDx stage, and it's not that. But to be on a TEDx stage, you have to have some kind of X factor, okay? But it could be anything, right? What makes you successful in business? What makes you successful relationally? What makes you successful? You know, I see lots of people in the circles I run where you see crowds of people running, gathering around a person, and they want to hear what they have to say. I don't see that that much these days with obviously with COVID and now some social distancing, although it's starting to open up again. But you know, when we were in normal circumstances, you see that, right? What is that X factor? And I believe it's something, right? And we can get into some of this later, but you know, some of the things that I think, you know, I've been able to leverage is my sincerity, the fact that I have, you know, I'm relentless, right? There's certain things that we all have within us that really allow us to stand out from others. And not like, it's not a competition thing, but it's a what makes you special thing. So I'd love to hear everyone else's opinion on it, right? That's why we wanted to, you know, have the whole, team here give their opinion, because I just have one perspective. And I love, what I love about these shows is I love learning. I love seeing what everybody else has to say, because I only have my perspective, right? And I always love saying it. If I'm the smartest guy in the room, I'm in the wrong room. So I know there's some really smart, bright people on this call. I'm so happy that I'm definitely not the brightest one in the room. So I can't wait to hear everyone else. You're on mute, sir.
It's number one for me today. We got Teresa, who is also TED Talk on networking for success. So we got amazing people in the audience as always. Stephen Lieber checking in from Calgary in the house. Teresa, you were right. Steve, she's checking in from Windsor, Ontario, Canada. Liza was saying Texas Pride. That's right. There we go. So who wants to jump in next on this topic? Judy, I think you said you wanted to jump in. Go ahead.
Okay. Hello, Texas Pride. I'm Dallas. So I think that there's a lot of things, and I do think that part of it is inside of us, but I do also believe that to have this X factor, you first have to be comfortable in your own skin. So don't compare yourself to everybody else, because you're not. You're unique, and what makes you unique gives you that X factor. I also believe that part of it is to realize that you do bring value, and a lot of times we don't think that we do, and we start to second guess ourselves. So you have to move away from that. And easier said than done, I know, but there's a lot more to it. I also want to say that one of the biggest things about the X factor is that you have to be present wherever you are. You have to be present. You can't be looking at your watch to get your messages or tapping your foot or trying to be somewhere else. Be present. It's the greatest gift you can give someone. And then most importantly, don't prejudge anybody. Make sure you understand what it feels like to be prejudged. And that was what my TED Talk was about. So don't prejudge people. So that's what I've got, Cameron.
I love it. And Mackenzie's going to jump in here too. And I love that about just being present, because so many times we can get in our head and that stops us from really shining. I love that point. Go ahead, Mackenzie.
Yeah, I really love what you said first too, Judy. I think a lot of the time we are looking externally for the answers, right? What's next? I can go read a book. I can go learn more about this or that. But in reality, taking the time to pause and look inward often lends itself towards having the confidence and the ability to go out and confidently tackle whatever your dreams are and whatever your big goals are. So I think that that's a big part of it, is taking the time to pause and look inwardly. I think the other thing is, not any kind of crazy magic bullet here, but it's just putting in the work, right? Like putting in the work every single day gets you a lot farther than any magic bullets, if you will.
I love that. Jason, I know you wanted to jump in. Go ahead.
Okay, so I can use an example to start this. So let's say that I'm asking someone what they actually want to do, right? And then if you were to look at the X factor, what is it that they actually want to do? That's the first thing, right? And so I know my X factor is I know what I want to do. It's because I always ask why, right? So if I'm always asking why and I'm asking people why, it's like my detector is really strong, because I'm just totally extracting everything around and I'm looking at what that person actually wants, right? So my X factor is like, I'm a what you want detector. Because if I'm trying to extract someone from their business, so that they can actually be out of the operation, you got to find out what they actually enjoy doing. And a lot of people don't know what they want. So that is what I'm really good at. I'm really personable and trying to figure out where the next steps could be once you figure out why they like it, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I love that. And I think that's a big part of, we talk about that a lot on this show, right, Steve? Just kind of being a go-giver and really not being self-serving, right? I'm not just going to get on the call and talk to you about this is what I do.
Just ask questions. Yeah, just ask all the questions.
Yeah, I appreciate that a lot. Being present means undivided attention, Susan Castelli says, chiming in. I love that. So we got this second question here. How do you find your own X factor within you? Steve, you want to get us started off? And then again, if everybody would just kind of let me know who wants to jump in next on this. How do you find your own X factor within you? Go ahead, Steve.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of things that you can do to find your own X factor and what makes you special, right? I think some of it's going to require, at least it did for me, a lot of internal retrospection, right? You know, one of the things, and I think Judy touched on initially, playing the compare game is brutal, it's deadly, and it sucks, to be blunt. Yeah. And I was there for many years. I was like, and I heard it said this way: you'll always be a second class somebody else, but you'll be a first class you. And so trying to find what's special about you, like, you know, I have somebody in my life, a mentor in my life. He is super dynamic. He is hilariously funny. He is bold. He's got some incredible traits. And when I tried to be that, it was just not good. I pissed people off. It was awkward. It was just not good. And so when I started to realize I don't need to be that, I need to be the best version of me, that's when things changed. But it took a lot of time for me to get to that point. I hope and pray anybody listening to this, you don't take as long as I did to get to that place. But I started to realize, you know, hey, what are my best qualities? What are my best traits? Right? What are the things that really, you know, made me different? And, you know, certainly having conversations with people and asking questions, I think is a good one. You know, hey, so what are some of the things that you think, you know, stand out about me? I mean, you know, and you could talk about that with some people. I mean, probably wouldn't be good to just go out, you know, up to strangers and ask that question, but people that know you and respect you, right? But I think a lot of it for me was, again, just, you know, a lot of reading, a lot of retrospection, some meditation, some prayer, and it finally came to me. And then I think, you know, Jason, you might have touched on a little bit, knowing that why, right? Having a purpose in my life, it really helped for me. Coming up with a life's mission's purpose tremendously helped me to understand, okay, now I understand where I am and where I'm going. And now that really stood out for me, and people really started to attract to me, and things started to magically happen. So that's my 2 cents.
I know Mackenzie wants to jump in. Go ahead, Mackenzie. We got Tandalea. I love the name. I don't know if I can say it right, but I love the name. Tandalea Hicks checking in from Tyler, Texas. So we got a few Texas folks in the house. Go ahead, Mackenzie.
Yeah. So I love what you said, Steve. And you know, the way I think about it, or the way that I've heard it, is that if you are following best practices or following a model that someone else has laid out to get you where you think you want to go, you will never be number one. You will never be the best in your field because you are following someone else's roadmap, right? So you have to create your own. And I think it goes back to the first question, just taking the time to understand who you are, what your priorities are, look for those answers within, if you will. Personally, I think the confidence to go forth and write my own rules or make my own rules, come up with my own best practices, have come from learning the rules, the existing rules, the existing state of the union better than anyone else, you know, spending more time doing it, and then having the confidence to go ahead and break those rules, right? I think you have this little voice, or at least I have had this little voice that's always kind of like, this isn't quite right. Or, you know, you're hearing this, but there's something that's not quite adding up here. And just the ability to hear it, first of all, right? Because we're trying to silence all of the things that run counter to what it is that we've been told, or what someone tells us will work. And if you can hear that voice and follow that thread, I think that's how you find your own way, basically.
Love that. Getting back to my buttons here. Judy, go ahead. I know you wanted to jump in.
Okay, so I agree, you know, with some of the things that I had said earlier about like what gives you your X factor. For me, how I find it is I have been prejudged my entire life. I've been told I'm intimidating, unapproachable, out of someone's league. I'm also told I don't need to be coached because just look at you. You've got it all going on. So I had to figure out how to really find my own X factor. And I did two different things. The first thing I did was I challenged the status quo. When somebody said to me, you don't need this, or you're too much like that, I would say, why do you actually believe that? And go back to a conversation and figure out what they actually see from me, about me, and perceive of me, which leads me to number two. Because number two is I did a random survey of people. When I first started my company, I went and I was a keynote speaker. And every time I would speak, no one would talk to me till I came off stage. No one, no one at all. And so after it happened like 2 or 3 times, it's very uncomfortable because when I came off, they'd be all over me. I love you. You're awesome, blah, blah, blah. But before, it was silence. And so I did random surveys and I would go up to people and I would say to them, when you see me, can you describe me in 3 words? And no matter who it was, no matter where it was always these 3 same things. You're intimidating, unapproachable, and out of our league. Well, it made me feel like really horrible. So I talked to my coach and I said, is that the perception I'm giving people? Because that's not me. And I would be in tears. And she said to me, you have to remember that you are an introvert. And so if you walk into a room and you don't know anybody, you're not going to go out and say hello to everybody. On stage, you can, you're already calmed down about it. But when you first walk in, you're not. And so she said, you have to find a way to break the ice. And so I thought, like, what am I going to do? How am I going to do this? And in order for me to find out who I was for that X factor, I wore a pair of boots one day and a woman came up to me and said, I love your boots. And I actually had to stop and think, did I already speak because somebody's talking to me? And then it happened again, and it happened again. The next time I spoke, same thing, wore the boots, same thing. The third time I decided I was going to be like an athlete. I'm not changing my boots. For some reason, it's working. And what I realized was it was the icebreaker. And so I was able to let people know I brought value and let people know I was, present, and all the things that I said earlier about, be comfortable in my own skin. But I truly wasn't comfortable in my own skin because I was giving off a vibe that I didn't really want to be giving off. So after that, I wear boots all the time. I'm in Texas. I wear boots in the summer. I don't care. I always wear boots. They are an icebreaker. And I've learned to deal with my, being an introvert. And that brought out a lot of other things. And so that's how I find my X factor.
I love that. And I love having that icebreaker because I find that I've talked about it on this show before, having those moments where you're walking into a place and I don't know what to say to sort of start the conversations. People aren't coming up to me. So having something there that helps people just to sort of break into their conversations gives you something. I love that so much. I appreciate it. Jason, I know you wanted to jump in on this question on how do you find your own X factor within you? Go ahead.
Oh, this is a good one. So I'm a minimalist. Not so much that it's like I would consider, I'm probably more a modern minimalist where I like to find the shortcuts to everything. If I can rely on software over a person, I will. So the way that I build things is I think about them with nothing and then build it up, right? So if I'm wireframing anything, that's like how that's my life, is like I can go from 0 and work my way up. So the way that I think that I found out was by removing everything and then starting again. And then only adding what I liked. And some things I like that are challenging and some things I like that are, I just like them. And then you can just build. So starting from 0 is probably why I'm so good at like workflow design and stuff, is because I look at it all and then I'm like, I'm not going to, do it that way. Let's do it the way you can with all the new technologies, decision intelligence, et cetera. And so that's like my personality is exactly the same way. It's no one really tries to do it from scratch. They always just rely on something else. So if you go from 0, like there's so many opportunities. Just start again, reset, right?
I love that. And I want to shout out Yakov, who's got a question, because you were talking about questions being a tool to kind of bring out other people's X factor. Jason, Judy, you're talking about, having some icebreakers to sort of, I think that's like it. That's on like the branding level. When you talk about X factor and you think about superstar, right? You're what sort of. I love that you were asking the questions, Judy, about what are people thinking about you, like that. That is a great tool, I think, in survey. Yakov is asking the question: what tools do you find to help others bring out their own X factor? So Jason can't wait to answer this. Go ahead, Jason.
Yeah. Okay. Mortality. always remind people how long they're going to live, right? Like this is like, it sounds crazy, but it works so well, right? I call it like 100 minus now. Okay. So 100 being like is 100 years of life. And then you just basically what you're doing is you're accelerating the time that they have to make decisions, because now they're like, all right, well, I'm here and I know I can't go past here. Right. So now it's like, uh-oh, time's up. So that it's like a pressure cooker for that, for sure. I mean, your own mortality is like, should be right forward with everything, but it isn't.
Yakov, you gotta tell us, Yakov, in the comments if that's something that you like. I like that Tendalia jumps in here. Judy, thank you for sharing the tip of having people describe you in 3 terms and then working towards changing that perception. I'm always told that I am intimidating and unapproachable until people get to know me. I can't wear boots, but I've started looking for ways of complimenting total strangers on something that they are wearing. And I've used this example before, but my mentor, Charles Thompson, he was in a room, and whatever you think of political figures, he was in a room with Bill Clinton, and he remembers the moment, and he talks about the story. Bill Clinton leans over to him and compliments him on the tie. There's a reason that people are put up on that. They go places, they've learned these kind of things. Talk about X Factor, right? The compliment thing, such a big deal. Judy, Tendalia, such great insights. All right, who wants to jump in next here? I know I'm missing comments on the back end here. Judy's got it. Go ahead, Judy.
Mute Judy.
You got. I think she unmuted and I put her on mute.
Yep. You did. Tendalia, thank you for that. And I have to say, I actually do that as an exercise with a lot of my clients. I will say to them, put down 3 words that describe you, and then you need to ask somebody that you trust to describe 3 words, and see what they say, and see what you say, and see if it's in alignment. Because I know that if I put down 3 words, it would not be, unapproachable and intimidating and out of my league, because that's not who I am. But evidently, it was something I was giving off. But I also do that, I do compliment. When we were out all the time, I would find somebody I didn't know, and I would compliment them on something they were wearing or the energy around them or something. And you got very different reactions. Sometimes people would go, who, me? Or sometimes people would very quietly say thank you, or they would say nothing at all. And what I came to realize is that a lot of people they don't hear kind words or compliments at all. Maybe a few times, they just don't hear it. And so when you do that, who do you think feels better about it, you or them? And it actually happened to me, because I was in a store and the salesperson said to me, "You look spectacular today." And I looked and I was like, "Who, me?" And she said, "Hasn't anybody told you that today?" And so I came home and I said to my husband, "How do I look today?" And he said, "Great." And I'm like, "No, I look spectacular." And that, so it really does make you feel great when somebody says something to you, and especially somebody that, you don't know out of the blue. I do it on the plane all the time. I always try to catch somebody's eyes as they're walking past me, and I smile to see if they smile back, because there's lots of different ways that you have that X factor, and you don't even know it, because people will say to you, "You just made my day." You seriously made my day.
Judy, I got to ask this question. King Chow asked this question. I think this is a good one for you, and anyone else who wants to jump in on it, let me know. King Chow says, question, when you were transforming, King Chow, hello, thanks for being here. I met with him the other day, so he said he was going to be on today. Thanks for doing that. Question, when you were transforming, developing your X Factor, did people around you feel uncomfortable? What did you say to yourself and the people feeling uncomfortable? So it's an interesting question, because I think we can all have the different feelings about being something that we're not, imposter syndrome, different things, but he's talking about how it might be affecting other people as we're kind of coming into our own, right?
Yeah, and that's a really great question, because most of us, I don't care how great a speaker you are, how influential you are, whatever, it doesn't matter. At some point in your life, you have felt that, either the imposter syndrome, or that you just, that it just was uncomfortable, whatever you were doing. I never actually felt that I was an imposter. I just felt I didn't belong anywhere. I was that round, that round peg in the square hole, or the square peg in the round hole, whatever it was, because my father always told me I was nothing more than a waste of time, basically. And That's in my TED Talk. And so I had to talk to myself. I was very uncomfortable about it. And when I would tell other people, they felt bad for me. And I would say, don't feel bad for me. Let's talk through this, because they were going through the same thing. So I know that when they were uncomfortable, it was because a lot of times they felt the same exact way. So I always use myself as an example. And I always let people know that it was hurtful, but I need to rewind the tapes. So the very first few times that I would do a keynote, before I got on stage, I had to talk to myself and say, you were meant for this, you have a message to get, so on and so forth. And I would talk to myself, and then I would take a deep breath, and then I would go out and I would be me, as opposed to me trying to be who I wasn't. And so I think it's very important to be authentic and to make sure that if somebody's uncomfortable with the way you are, the way, if you can't change that and let them see who you really are, you might want to move to another circle, because they probably are not your people. And that's another whole story for another whole day.
I love that. And Mackenzie, I know, wants to jump in. I just wanted to shout out, we had Yakov who was responding. It's a start. He needs the full toolkit. So keep asking questions, Yakov. We'll keep on following up and adding tools to the toolkit here. Go ahead, Mackenzie.
Well, I first want to just say, Judy, I talk to myself a lot too. So I think there might be some thread there to pull for folks who are listening. I talk to myself all the time, a lot of times in the mirror, and tell myself how I'm going to show up or what I'm going to do. So I love that little tidbit. This is a really public or maybe extreme example of this, but we help coach people on using their voice on LinkedIn. And a thing that I frequently notice is that people are most scared, not of what just the general public will think of them, but of what those closest will think, right? So the question was, how do the people around you feel when you're coming into your own or finding your way or finding your voice? And it's frequently the thing that people are the most scared of, right? Is not what some unknown person will think, but what my coworkers will think, what my family will think, what my friends will think. And the most important thing, and the advice that we give people all the time is, if this is something you would say to one person, then we shouldn't, there's no reason to be afraid of saying it to a bigger audience, right? There's this alignment of self, right? If you're not showing up the same way across different mediums and in different conversations, you start to develop this kind of fragmented identity, and it's not serving you or anyone else around you. So, it goes back to confidence, I guess, but I think that it's interesting just to see how people navigate this in a very public format.
I love that. We got such great comments coming in here. I love this comment from Teresa. She says, I talk to myself too, because sometimes I need expert advice. I love that. And that's that positive self-talk, right? Really, and we've talked a lot about that on the show before. You're getting into networking, you're going into situations, that positive self-talk, because what do we not want? The negative self-talk. Steve, I know you want to jump in. Go ahead.
Absolutely. I want to cover a couple things first. Number one, I want to Yakov, reach out to me. Maybe with a conversation together, I can help you. I think it's just a conversation. I don't think it's any tools per se. I think you can if you speak frankly with somebody, I think they can help you maybe uncover it with with some back and forth a little bit. But here's what I'm getting from this panel, and I'm getting as we're talking through this and kind of because again when I come up with topics, I have a general idea in my head, but I don't really think it all the way through because I really a lot of times I pick topics because I want to hear what everyone else has to say. But what I hear from this and what's really resonating for me is when you really, really care about somebody, that's the X factor. When people really feel that you care. Judy was talking about like making people's day special. Jason said some things too. Mackenzie said some things, and I'm not remembering every detail of what everyone said, but it's when they see that you really care. And to get to that, what you have to start to do, in my opinion, is first love yourself. You have to accept yourself. You have to love yourself before you can love others. And so there's some, and we have some in the future shows coming up. One of our shows coming up is going to be on self-compassion and loving yourself and accepting yourself. And that could take some work. I mean, it could take some some therapy. It could take some, self-reflection, whatever. But getting to a point where you love yourself, because then you can start to love others and really care about others. And to me, that's a lot of the X factor. The people that I've seen, and you even got to look at somebody like a Gary V. He's, he drops the F-bomb and he's pretty wild, but you could tell he really cares about people, and that caring factor, it just oozes out of people. And when you feel that from them, I think that draws people in. Again, whether it's, like Judy said, whether you're seeing somebody on the way, in the middle of a terminal of an airport, and you say hello, or you catch their eye, or somebody says you look spectacular, it's because you care. And when you care, people are attracted. They again, people want to know you, they like you, they trust you. That's the ones that like to do business with you, right? So how do you get that across? And if you can get that across in a couple seconds, if you can get that across in like what Mackenzie was talking about through your social media posting and your language, your video, whatever, if you can get that across, you'll find that to be the X factor that you're looking for. And you can go in different ways with that. So that's my 2 cents.
Go around and push buttons. We got the applause going on. I love that. I deeply agree. Obviously, the care. We had Bob Berg on here talking about the go-giver, and there's just so much, I think, that is an intricate part of everything that we're talking about in terms of making sure that you're putting others first, and that it's not just all self-interest when you're talking to somebody, and people recognize it, people see it, right? Who wants to jump in here? We have this question on who wants to, what are some ways you have leveraged or capitalized on your X factor? I know Judy's jumped in a little bit on this. I don't know who wants to jump in first on what are the ways that you leverage your X factor? Go ahead, Jason.
I call it breaking the fourth wall of business. So it's something that I'm working on, but with social media and, your business life, there's like so much blend between this work-life balance. And I think that that's dated even saying that, but the way that I look at things is like, if I lead by example. So if I'm like, the company that I run is called The Automated Method. So I rely on workflow, SaaS products, cloud, decision intelligence. We don't have to talk about that. But a lot of people in the world run businesses and they have to work somehow. So if I'm trying to figure out the path of least resistance for all this, they can live kind of vicariously through my life, even if I was the story brand or whatever, because everybody, if they're in business, has to do something. And then I'm finding the life hack, you know what I mean? So if I tell anybody what I'm doing or they see what I'm doing, and I mean shortcuts. If I'm tapped into, you just ask yourself, who's tapped into decision intelligence? Well, if I can tell you that I'm literally in a WeWork space right now, and I don't have to check my phone, right? Everything's automated. I got bots, whatever. So if you think about leading by example, I'm not bullshitting anybody, right? At all. For real. You can ask me how to do any of the stuff that you can do to keep yourself away from your business automatically, or keep yourself away from stuff you don't want to do automatically, So that's the breaking the fourth wall, because I don't have to lie on social media. I can be exactly myself on social media as I am in real life.
That authenticity thing is such a big deal, right? And people know. People know
big
when
deal.
you're. It's it can be tough when somebody's talking a big game and you're like, is this for real? But if you're asking that question, they're probably not.
Exactly.
That's the answer, right?
Exactly.
Judy, I know you wanted to jump in. Go ahead, Judy.
Okay, just want to make sure I'm unmuting and you're not muting at the same time. Okay, so I do believe that authenticity is something that's huge. And if somebody has to tell you that they're being authentic, that is not being authentic. And
exactly.
because that's really something that makes me crazy when people say I'm authentic and I have integrity and blah blah blah, whatever. I don't believe that is what you need to do. Some of the ways that I have leveraged this, and without even really knowing about it, when I did my TED Talk, it was the first time that I had told my story out loud. And what I found was I was not the only person. And so when you can actually sit with somebody and talk about what they're experiencing and what you're experiencing, it's a very different level. I've also put together panels for women. And it was not about woe is me and why are we struggling. It was more about how do we change? How do we shift? How do we do all of these things? And we had hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of women on the panel, as the attendees. And people would come up to me later on. And remember, this is 100% virtual. They would send me an email or they send me a note or they send me a private message and they would say, there were so many women on this panel and in this audience. How come I felt like I was the only one you were able to talk to? It was that kind of connection. And I kept saying, if I could just figure out how to do this. And then I realized, but that's what I do all the time. And so when my mission is to help one woman a day, it's a very humbling experience when a woman raises her hand and says, can I be your woman today? Because women generally don't ask for help. And so that's a humbling experience. That's part of the X factor. That's part of the things that I do naturally. And so now there's a name for it, that this is what you're doing. But one last thing, when I first moved to Dallas, I was introduced to lots of different people because I knew no one. I came here knowing not a soul. I wasn't married then and my children were grown. I had no one. And the first few people that I met, they told me that they had changed their whole entire lifestyle and that now they were servant leaders. And so I didn't ask what it was with the first person. And then when I heard it the second and the third time, I said, can you just tell me what a servant leader is? And the person I was talking to, she started laughing and she said, you don't know what a servant leader is? Well, let me tell you. And she gave me like this whole dissertation of being a servant leader. And I said to her, oh, this is what I do every single day. I didn't know that I had to have a title. And that's the same thing about authenticity. When you have to tell somebody that's what you are or that's what you do, it's not. Your X factor is something that oozes out of your pores and something that you are able to demonstrate without even really thinking about it. So that's what I have.
I love it. And I know Steve will want to jump in, but I think Jason's chomping at the bit there.
Just quick. That's like when that's like, yeah, that's just real quick. That's like everybody on LinkedIn that changed their title to CEO and founder. Kill me. I can't. That's all I wanted to say about that. That's my favorite. I'm like, yeah.
Go ahead, Steve.
Yeah.
Oh, and I just want to give a shout out to Jennifer Henderson, who's joining us. And I love Braden Daniels' thing. I think this is, we've been talking around this a little bit all day, but experience is the X factor, right? I was on the comment too from Braden, experience factor, because it's that experience. I know in breaking down my business, I think one of the things that it's sort of in looking for people that can replace me, that's going to be our next question. But the idea that you can have somebody that is going to take care of folks, it's the experience. That's the big game changer. And when you're able to bring that to bear, it's so funny when you're talking to clients and people that you're working with. Yeah, that's it, right? Because you're like, they get it. They get it. Go ahead, Stephen.
Yeah, it's good stuff. There's a lot of good things that we can go here with this conversation. But yeah, I love what Judy was talking about. And but now because Cameron, you broke in, I completely lost what she was saying. No worries, it's all good. But and then Jason threw in the CEO thing, but that's all good. But yeah, so in general, this is my feeling about the X factor, and kind of to go in a little bit deeper on how we use that. I remember what I want to say about Judy, right? Number one, and I love John Maxwell, is one of my favorite authors, and he says, how do you spell leadership as example, right? Not to get religious or spiritual to anybody, but famous Billy Graham preacher said, I preach the gospel everywhere I go, and when necessary, I use words. And so it's really about what you do, not necessarily what you say. And so the title thing, I agree with, right? It's not about titles. It's about how you live, right? And so in terms of this question, right, and it's almost awkward saying this, but I believe that, for me, I try to just live who I am, and I'm putting it out there. I'm being authentic. I'm being transparent. I'm leading with my weaknesses. I'm leading with, some of the challenges I've had. I don't claim to be some, incredible guru kind of guy. I just live my life, try to add value to people. And I like to portray that on social media. I like to portray it when I have networking meetings. And it's funny because I got a message from somebody, I'm not going to mention who it is, recently. I think I connected with him maybe 3 or 4 years ago, and we had some conversations, and we were potentially talking some business. And I must have given him some attitude. And I think back on how that conversation was, and I have to number one, apologize. I did apologize to him, but I was a different person then, because honestly, about 2.5, 3 years ago, I was really, as I said, I was going through this transition of being this somebody that I was trying to be somebody who I wasn't. And the minute I understood who and what I was, who made me and what I'm on this planet for, what this big round marble, for, I understood, and I'm here to add value and to really allow people to grow and become and be the light. And so once that started to happen, it was easy enough for me to just share that. And so if social media is one place I could do it, networking calls, living my life, again, I love what Judy said as far as, complimenting people when I'm at, if my wife and I had a dinner recently, we complimented the server, and sincerely, right? Because it's all about how could you really, make a difference and really, can you make their day a little bit better? And to me, that's what we're here for. So that's what I wanted to share.
Love it, Steve. Love it a lot. I know, because it's showing by example too. We all go through things that, we make changes in our life because we go through and adjust. I love Judy's stories about the boots, because it's like, maybe it's something you wouldn't think of, and sometimes it's the simple things. It's just the changing the frame of the way you're thinking. I love it.
Can I just say something about Judy? So she says she's intimidating, but yet she wears this trademark a leather jacket, which is kind of interesting dichotomy, right? She got the leather jacket and the skirt. I love this dichotomy that she puts forth. It's pretty awesome.
Love it. We got Braden Daniels checking in. I combine magic and leadership. I've been getting better at ensuring my connections experience both when we meet. Love it. Steve, you are absolutely doing that. Appreciate you. We got lots of folks checking in. All right, who wants to jump in on this? And our next question, our next big one, can you duplicate your X factor so if you were X'd out of the equation, both temporarily or permanently, your business wouldn't skip a beat? I don't know who wants to jump in on that. I know it's something that I'm certainly working. I was just talking about it before, and the idea of finding experience and duplicating my experience, documenting my experience. Go ahead, Mackenzie.
Well, I mean, so it's funny. Someone mentioned that experience was a big part of an X factor, and I'm not sure if that's always true. I think sometimes experience can cloud the kind of innate things that are special or really powerful about who we are and what it is that we do. I think about some of my first career experiences, and honestly, I feel like in some ways I moved more quickly and was more effective than I am, years. I mean, in other ways I'm not, but like, I think that experience is not always the most important thing. And in fact, like frequently when I'm looking for team members to hire for my team, I'm looking for something, another trait or quality that someone mentioned in the comments there. I'm looking for passion and energy and excitement about the subject matter. Of course, I'm looking for intelligence and competence and like a bunch of other things too. But I think that it starts with hiring and finding the really exceptional people. And when I say exceptional, I mean the people that have this kind of excitement, energy, desire to do more, be better, grow. Because like you can't teach, desire, right? You can't teach like passion or drive, right? Those are things that are really hard to teach. And so I think that you can do a lot of things by way of setting up processes and helping to lead by example, right? Not necessarily documenting everything exhaustively. That sometimes helps, but more so just setting an example that people can follow who are hungry and maybe aren't as experienced. But yeah, I think that it has a lot more to do with finding the right people who also have that something, intrinsic about who they are that will help carry on the legacy that you've started.
I love that. And we have great comment from Lisa in the audience. Oh, great question. Sounds like Jason's space automation. Oh my goodness, my words are just going crazy right now. Automation, there we go. Can automate that word for me, Jason, so I don't have to say it. I love that. I was just thinking about you. I think, when I talk about experience too, and I know that, in terms of my hiring process, I'm looking for experience, but the right kind of experience, because that is so true that people that have been given the bad habits, for example, I hire for catering positions, waiters and bartenders and chefs for my staffing company. If I get somebody from the restaurant experience, I'm almost Xing them out right away, because I know if they've only had that restaurant experience, they're not the right fit for what I'm doing, because they've learned things that just aren't going to really help them in my environment. And I think that's such a big, big, big deal. You want to remain open-minded, but you also want to understand how the world works, where people kind of go with their skill sets. I love it. Who wants to jump in? I know, Steve, you were saying you would jump in. Judy, who wants to go first here? Not all at once.
I could go. If no one's ready to go, I'll go, and then anyone jump in after me. Yeah, so I think this is just food for thought. And I think you should, whoever's listening, think hard about this. And I think about it, right? I have someone in my life that, they were super successful, got into they had a home invasion, and they got, there was a skirmish with a gun, point blank range, gun went off right into their head, and they were left for dead. And by some miracles and some circumstances, they survived. And 2 years in the hospital rehab, just crazy story. And but while that was happening, their business doubled, tripled, and quadrupled in the 2 years while they were in the hospital rehabbing. They didn't even think. They told his wife, "You should just walk away. He's going to be a cognitive vegetable. Start your life from scratch and just start walk away." And she was very loyal. She stuck with him. But yeah. And so what happens, right? What happens? I don't wish any of that on anyone here. But what happens if you lose your ability to perform? I know we have Tim Colson, one of our supporters here. He had some medical stuff going on, and he had to think about this himself, right? And so what happens if you lose your ability to perform? Is your business going to survive? Is what you do going to survive? So I think about that sometimes, right? So a couple things. The question that you have is your business or business model duplicatable? Can you duplicate yourself? Can you, and Mackenzie was touching on it. She was saying, I like to bring on people, right? I know there's this sort of management, this leadership leadership versus management mentality. But also there's mentorship, right? And so are you bringing someone on? Are you bringing them in a mentoring capacity that maybe at one day they could take over you and do what you do? And it's tricky because, a lot of times in certain industries, right, the better they become and the more they know and the more they learn about what you do, there's a good chance they're going to be your competition. They're going to leave and become your competition. So it's really figuring out what you could do to really duplicate. Now, maybe some of it's automation. If you could figure out a way to automate. So if, God forbid, you were in a place where you had no capacity whatsoever and your business will continue to grow, then you figured out a way with automation. But definitely think about it. Can you still sustain yourself if your business grows? And what's that X factor within you and within your business that will keep it going? So there's two X's going on there. So I thought it was an interesting question, right? The X factor of Xing yourself out of the equation. What does it still continue to grow? And number two, do you have an X factor to allow that to continue to grow? So hopefully that didn't confuse things, but.
No, I think it's so important. I mean, you think about somebody, business like Judy, Judy's a speaker, right? What happens if you're not able to speak? People will go through these kind of things, right? You have singers that, they end up with some kind of throat cancer. Now, they're not able to, we hear about it in the news. What do you do when your whole business is based on you and your particular X factor, and that potentially goes out of the window? How do you ensure that for the future? How do you protect yourself? Judy, I know you wanted to jump in. Go ahead. You're on mute. 2023.
Hey, stop muting me. Okay, so I agree with some of the things that Mackenzie was saying, because it's true. You have to look for people for different experiences. I always say, look for somebody that you can encourage creativity, because they're the ones that are going to think outside the box. They're the ones that are going to show you different ways of doing things. Same thing when you have, 5 generations in a business, when you say, well, I can't learn from them because they're too old or they're too young. You have to be able to be open to possibilities. But what happens when your business leaves and you're still able to do your business? So go back to last year, 2020. On March 13th, 2/3 of my business was taken away from me, 100%. All my speaking and all my live training, 100% gone. And it was nothing that I did, and I was still capable of doing that, except that nobody was doing that. And so when you think about that, you are X'd out of your business, and there's nothing you could do about it except to shift. And I always tell people on January 1st, I come up with a word that means something to me. And January 1st, 2020, my word was shifting. And who knew how relevant that was going to be? It was like I had some kind of psychic powers. But the truth of the matter is that I had to shift everything. So I became a certified, virtual presenter, and I started doing things like, the Exceptional Women's Panel, and I did summits, and you learn to do things that, because you were X'd out and it wasn't your choice, you have to do things that will change. You start to do things online. You start to do things where you can scale and you don't have to be everywhere. And so that's actually what happened. So I had to make a 360-degree shift. The truth of the matter is now, there's a lot of companies that didn't think their industry could do anything virtually that are realizing, oh, I can, and I don't have to, pay people to come in, and I could do this and I could do that. So now you have to also think about, how is your X factor going to be transferred again if you're going to be, more of a hybrid? And so it's not just when you can't do something, it's what happens when the business leaves as well. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of those things that I created were not on my radar, but they're all based on the qualities of the X factor.
Jason, you want to jump in? Go ahead.
Okay, so first off, I like to just say the word that I can't believe hasn't been said yet, ego. I can't believe, like how long are we? 56 minutes in. So that's, okay, I'm going to do a personal story here. So one of my best friends has tenure at a university, and he likes the private research and he loves the teaching, but he doesn't love the teaching as much as the private research. And so when you're a professor, you're at the top of your academic pyramid, right? In a way. And he always said, like, formulas, laws, theories, that's what scientists, strive for. So that means that they live beyond them. A faceless, nameless, sort of nameless, but a theory, right? A law or whatever. And so you can take any idea. So the idea is more powerful than you. So you have to extract the idea from yourself. And then that's not your X factor anymore. That's the X factor, right? And so I compare it to that. So like, if I'm not there, I don't have to be there. I wrote an idea. I came up with an idea, whether it's a philosophy or a process. And people always say, like, people, process, and technology. The technology is automated decision-making, right? Like, that's the easy part these days. It's available. You just have to know how to use it. And then you have people. Well, you got to find the people because they want to work in the idea, right? And then the process is what I focus on. Process is forward for sure. That's how I can compare idea to something that would be something that can be without me. And then they can take my face off the book and then I can just be this idea. You know what I mean?
I think systems and processes are key for everything that you do, because even for yourself, if you're sitting there trying to figure things out from, you're getting into the next thing. Okay, I got to duplicate. If you didn't document what you did before, now you're trying to start from scratch and go from memory. But if you're documenting, you just make
documentation
it easy,
for sure.
And you build like this mini armed person of you now that has this ability to fly on to the next task because you've built. We talk about standing on the shoulders of giants. Well, you can stand on, like Teresa was saying before, I talked to myself to get expert advice. You can build on your own expertise, and that is really how you maximize your X factor. I love that. I love that so much. All right, who else wants to jump in here? We're getting towards the top of the hour here, so we're going to start closing things out. Steve, why don't you jump in here and just talk to us a little bit about, because I know one of the things that started off our relationship was you recommending the E-Myth, and I think that was such a great book that talks exactly about documenting these processes here. And then we'll go round robin. We'll go Jason, and then Judy and Mackenzie, and close things out with some whatever kind of big thing you want to leave folks with, and we'll answer this question on how to systemize and process your business. Go ahead, Steve.
Yeah, it's a great book, E-Myth Revisited. And, the book, basically, the thesis of the book is you want to be working on your business, not in your business, right? And for companies or businesses that are looking to eventually, either have a succession plan or maybe eventually sell their business, or they just want to have the ability to, I don't know, maybe take a month off and go travel, whatever. If you're always working in your business, you'll never have the ability to be able to do things, right? So it's super important. So, again, without, taking away what you get from the book, is putting in those systems in place and processes and a lot of what Jason was talking about. And that is in getting to a place where the business then could run itself, right? And you can walk away and it still goes. And so it's a great book. I highly recommend it. And I think, my dad was, he owned a liquor store. He owned a small business. And I saw what it was like not doing things that way. He was really just a slave to his business. He was, he owned his job basically by having his company. And that's not truly what I don't think anyone wants to own their job. I think they want to own their life. And, the job is a vehicle, or the business is a vehicle to be able to have a better life. Not necessarily the life, and hey, listen, there are some people that their whole world and identity is wrapped up in their business or their job or their career. And that's okay. I'm not putting it down. But for me, whatever I've done in my career or in my life or my business, it's really been to be able to have a lifestyle, right? And I heard it said like this: we make a living by what we do during the day, but we make a life by what we do after hours. And I want to know, what do we get to do after our after hours? And do you have time, or are you really just so wrapped up in your business? So
yeah, it really becomes the whole thing, and it might be cliche, but are you living to work, or are you working to live? Right, that whole point. All right, we're gonna go round robin here. Jason, you can leave a nugget for the audience here, whatever you want to leave people.
Oh yeah, I got.
And then let people know how they can get in touch with you. Obviously, if they're following on LinkedIn, down on the comments on the side, or Facebook, they can find your LinkedIn, but you can give out a website, that sort of thing. People, please do connect with our guests today. They're amazing. Jason, go ahead.
Okay, this is great. I actually wrote this down the other day. So those phrases that everybody thinks they understand, like time is money, it's hard to find good people and keep them. What's another one? Like, you can't manage what you don't monitor or measure. Let me think here for a second here. Time equals money. There's a few of them, but the answers to those questions are actually pretty straightforward, but it's just lip service to people. So if you're running a business, if you can't answer those questions, like for yourself, I think that a lot of definitions have to change too. Like when I talk to someone and I say, it's not time, it's bandwidth. And then they're like, whoa, what does that mean? I'm like, there you go. Okay. There's some homework for you, right? It's like with the definition of work, right? I think that needs to change too. So everything needs to be redefined, and it's not automation. So like, yes, my business does scope and modernize businesses for sure, but that's not what it is all the way. It's always finding you're convincing the owner of something that they have no idea of. And it's because the society has trained their mind or to like think a certain way, and then they can't get out of it, right? So it's possible, but you have to answer those questions easy. Like, I think time is more important than money. I think that this whole last year has proven that. But will that stick around? Right? I think so. I hope so, but I don't know, because if someone doesn't understand that's like, they can figure out how to engineer themselves out of the business. It is possible, but if they don't want to, then they won't. It's very, very easy questions that you can answer to like get to the next level, but it's the convincing I think definitions need to change first. Anyway, theautomatedmethod.com is my site and our site, because I'm kind of like an agency too. And then start at theautomatedmethod.com is a trigger address, and it works through Zapier, and I can show anybody how that works too.
Love it, Jason. Thank you very much. All right, we're heading over to Judy. Judy, drop some knowledge on us, and let people know where they can find you other than LinkedIn.
Yeah. Okay, so I truly always think the message should be know your people. whether they're people that work with you, people that work for you, people that work above you, your clients. Know your people, know what they want, know where they're going, know what their goals are, so that you can be the one that shows them the journey, whether it's going to be make a left turn instead of a right, go straight ahead, whatever it is. Know your people. When you know your people and you know their why, it's magic. It's absolute magic. So that's always been the message. And so I would say, know your people. You can find me at my website is Selling in a Skirt. And you have my LinkedIn already. And almost everything I do has Selling in a Skirt attached to it. You can email me at Judy@sellinginasskirt, and easy breezy.
Love it. All right. We're going to go over to Miss Mackenzie Bowley. Go ahead.
I'll add on to Judy's because I loved hers. I think in addition to knowing your people, add value. If you're adding value at every step and every interaction, that starts with knowing your people, whoever they are, right? But the next step, I think, there is to find ways to add value at every step of the way. I'm going to drop my website and email address in the chat on LinkedIn here, but find me on LinkedIn. That's definitely the easiest way.
Love it. And we're right at the top of the hour. That rarely happens. Mr. Steve Spiro, take us out of here, brother.
So listen, I really, to reflect off of what Judy and Mackenzie just said, I'm going to take it another step further, and that is love people, right? Really learn how to love people. And if you love people, you can't help you. I believe that only good things will happen, right? Now, I'm not saying be naive, but just love people. And so that's and again, be the light. Make sure that you're shining your light. If you love people and you show it, be the light, great things will come to you, and for sure. And listen, I did a Fire to Friday recently, video about the fact that if you're serving other people, you will feel better about you. So as you go on and love people and be the light and serve them, people will start to come to you, say great things about you, and your self-esteem, self-worth will grow. So that's it for me. For me, you can find me on LinkedIn. Obviously, you can find me on stevespiro.com. I have all my links there. And Cameron, I think we have a show next week, right? We're back on again for a little while longer, right? Next week, we're going to be doing Ignite Your Passion and Rise Up.
That's right.
An incredible show. Panelists including Brandy Holloway, Danielle D, and also Ryan Griltz. They're actually a dynamic duo. They're a couple, and they do a lot of stuff together. They're a really cool duo. So it's gonna be a great show. So don't miss it. Share the love. Spread it to your network. It's gonna be an incredible show, and just super pumped. And so Cameron put it up for me. We're gonna end the show here. Cameron, you want to say anything before we go? Because people need to know about you too, sir. Right?
No, just saying. September Biz Dev Live is back. We're doing these every Monday. We're still going until the beginning of August, and then we'll take a break. We got so many people that are checking in on the comments here, but I'll keep us going on track here. So we're gonna count down and say crush it for everybody. We're gonna go. Steve, count us down.
5,
4, 3, 2, 1. Crush it, guys! Thank you so much for being here, Steve. Pleasure as always. See you next week, everybody. 1 p.m. Eastern on Mondays for the next few weeks. Take care. We love you. I'm going to play us out with the video here. Thanks, everybody. LinkedIn, we are going to fire up your Monday.
With Steve Spiro, the Master Connector.
I am Steve Spiro, the Master Connector.
Over the next hour of this Master Connection series, we will take a deep dive into the different ways to connect and network effectively.
See us and hear us right now. So LinkedIn, we are on here. We're getting ready.
Hear from experts along with Steve Spiro, who went from being shy and introverted to the Master Connector.